Okay, let me begin by explaining why I'm covering this. You see, I originally only rewatched this video after having not watched it for several months because I was doing research for another commentary, and I did not remember just how many issues there were with this video. Anyway, today's topic is Firebolt PT, specifically his video, Boltcom 7, Maze Material 1, starring Station. I should note the Maze Material thing is a reference to Bolt's lore, which I'm not going to comment on because I haven't actually watched enough of Bolt's videos to really know his lore, and I'm not going to piss off his fans when there very well could be well-written explanations for any criticisms I would lodge. Really, all you need to know for the purpose of this commentary is he's covering 3 different videos, and I plan on only covering the first one, which is Keyblade Master's commentary on Copycat.
The next franchise we're going to focus on is Kirby's, where the worst thing about his series is that it's starting to become stale and repetitive. To date, there are 17 platforming games starring the titular character, with the last being Star Allies that came out for the Switch in 2018. Although there are a few interesting concepts in that game, like its multiplayer mode, during my playthrough, I felt like I already had a similar experience in past titles, and it didn't seem like anything new happened at all.
Boy, I'm pretty sure Star Allies is a one-of-a-kind experience. Have you seen how ripped DD got?
Yes, I see the abomination in front of me. Oh god, what kind of super boss is that? That being said, I do wonder what you actually mean by it having a unique identity of its own.
I don't think he meant much of anything by that, given it was supposed to be a joke. However, let's take the statement seriously. What would Key think is unique about Kirby Star Allies? My guess is that he finds it unique that you're, quote, killing God with the power of friendship, given he specifically says that when he lists out differences among various Kirby games.
Or Kirby Star Allies, where you are killing God with the power of friendship!
Again, this backs up my whole Keyblade was joking hypothesis because he then goes on to give serious examples to prove his point. Oh, and there's also the fact that he starts the next sentence Bolt shows with "to be serious," therefore implying he wasn't being serious beforehand.
But to be serious, how—
I also want to talk about just how underexplained your point is. You say you wonder what Key means. Well, why wasn't that clear to you? Should Key have elaborated more? Are there things about Kirby Star Allies that inherently lead you to doubt what Key is saying? Do you not know what one of the words Key just used meant? It could be anything, honestly. You don't explain in the slightest. I'm going to assume it's the first one because that just makes the most sense, in which case Key elaborates as soon as you cut back to him. Lastly, why did you change Key's avatar? If it's a joke, well, not only is it so subtle, the only people who are going to notice it are the people who have already seen Key's original video, which inevitably is not going to be everybody, but also, I don't get it.
But to be serious, how exactly do you feel that you had a similar experience in past titles when compared to one another? As the Kirby games are usually able to stand out from one another, whether it be Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, where you have an open world to explore as opposed to a hub world, Kirby Squeak Squad, where you're seeking treasures, Kirby Superstars and its remake being a collection of mini-adventures, or Kirby Star Allies, where you are killing God with the power of friendship. If you know another game in the Kirby franchise that lets you kill God with the power of friendship, then at me, coward!
I have a problem with how you presented these points. For starters, I'm not sure how I feel about you using the older games as examples, since he said
It's starting to become stale and repetitive.
therefore inferring that he thinks this is a more recent issue. And when you look at the modern games on face value, you can get an idea as to what he's talking about, given that on the surface, Return to Dreamland, Triple Deluxe, Planet Robobot, and Star Allies look very similar to each other.
Okay, Bolt, you had me, then you lost me and confused me in the process. So you are right that Key was wrong to use older Kirby games. In fact, I even made that point in my commentary on him. However, what about these 4 Kirby games look similar at face value? The only evidence you give to back this up are just one picture from each game, which is not only not a very good way of presenting evidence, but I could also find several at face value differences between the 4 games you showed. For example, Return to Dreamland is the only screenshot of a game you showed where there's 4-player co-op, even though I know Star Allies also has 4-player co-op, meaning it would have actually helped your point to show the 4-player co-op in Star Allies, and you didn't. And the screenshot of Planet Robobot you show has this pseudo 3D perspective going on that's not present in any of the other screenshots. And that's not even getting into the differences I could glean by literally just skimming the Wikipedia page. For example, Kirby Triple Deluxe has copy abilities that were not present in Return to Dreamland, and has new subgames. Kirby Robobot not only introduced more copy abilities and minigames, but also introduced mech suits and the use of amiibos. I also want to point out that Kirby is in a mech suit on the cover of Kirby Robobot. So looking at it in as face value as you physically can, as in your face is literally just looking at the cover, your first thought isn't likely to be, this looks the same as the other Kirby games. It's likely to be, did Kirby take a visit to 21XX when I wasn't looking? And Kirby Star Allies introduced the concept of a dream friend. Again, all of these are differences in each game that I can tell just by looking at it at face value. Now, obviously all of these games have their set of similarities. However, it does appear, again, looking at these at face value, like each Kirby game has enough differences to where the average player would be able to tell the difference. To put it simply, yeah, these games have similarities, but that doesn't mean the experience of playing them appears to be similar. And if they are, you fail to elaborate at exactly how.
Granted, they all have their own unique attributes, but you don't go into that thanks to you focusing on the wrong games when arguing his point.
Yeah, and you didn't explain how these games were similar. I'll give you your points a tad stronger than Key's, considering you actually looked at the era of the Kirby series Copycat was referring to, but not by much, honestly. Hell, you could actually make the case that Key's point was stronger because, say what you want about his point, and I have said what I want about his point, at the very least, he gave examples to explain the differences in the Kirby games he was talking about. You didn't.
Another reason why Kirby games have felt stale is because they stopped making spin-off titles that I always remember amounted to extremely fun gameplay. The last one of these was Kirby's Air Ride for the GameCube, which was a very underrated racing title that unfortunately was overshadowed by Mario Kart and F-Zero at the time.
Well, that's a fucking lie, considering Kirby's Air Ride wasn't the last Kirby spin-off. There's games like Kirby's Blowout Blast, Deity's Drum Dash Deluxe, the Kirby Fighter games, and much more. So for you to discard these games to peddle on about how Kirby doesn't make any spin-off games is incredibly dishonest on your end and hurts your credibility as the presenter.
Again, your points seem mostly fine here on the surface, but I honestly think the examples you give aren't the best, given that he later complains about the Battle Arena style games to begin with, and there's also the fact that Blowout Blast and Fighters were originally sub-modes in their original games, Planet Robobot and Triple Deluxe respectively.
Your point about the Battle Arena gameplay doesn't make any sense because even ignoring the fact you don't actually show Copycat saying he dislikes the Battle Arena gameplay, which would have helped your point, that's also an entirely different argument. Changing the topic from, there aren't any more Kirby spin-off games, to, there aren't any more Kirby spin-off games minus this one specific style, is nothing more than moving the goalpost. Speaking of moving the goalpost, you do the same thing with your point about how the other two examples Key gave were originally minigames in other Kirby games. Never mind the fact that creating a specific game based around one concept from another game is one of the most common ways to create a spin-off in video game form. Captain Toad Treasure Trackers, anyone? Copycat didn't make the claim that the spin-offs we were getting were just expansions on minigames from the platformers. He said we weren't getting any spin-offs. That is inherently a different statement. If he meant something else, he should have said it. That's not even acknowledging the fact that Kirby Air Ride, which Copycat specifically name-dropped as a Kirby spin-off, has gameplay that is similar to another Kirby racing game, that being the Gourmet races in Kirby Superstar.
A better example, and one that would have bit him in the ass more, is Rainbow Curse, an entirely original game that plays and looks drastically different from the platformers, being more like Canvas Curse, and to my knowledge, both are considered spin-offs.
Actually, Wikipedia calls them both side games, not spin-offs, but blah. Now, the Kirby Wiki does list it as a spin-off. However, it also lists the game as a non-traditional platformer. I should also note that this makes Bolt's statement that it plays radically different than the other platformers wrong, because it must play very similar to another Kirby platformer, that being Kirby's Canvas Curse, which it is a sequel to. I should also note that Bolt later cites the Kirby Wiki as evidence that Kirby's Canvas Curse and Kirby's Rainbow Curse are spin-offs.
Heyo, I'm the Post Point guy now, and I've recently been informed that Key was originally going to bring up Canvas Curse, but one of his script checkers told him that was the main series game. However, in a later Discord call, another friend of both Keys and Bolt informed us that Rainbow Curse is a spin-off, so I'd recommend doing more research next time.
However, the Kirby Wiki also doesn't even agree with Bolt's description of Canvas Curse as a puzzle game, instead calling it an action platformer. For reference of what the Kirby Wiki would consider puzzle games, they list Kirby's Avalanche, Kirby Star Stacker, and Kirby Superstar Stacker as such. Anyway, that's all I want to cover, so final thoughts? I had to do way more research about Kirby for this commentary than I thought I ever would have. Good night, and good luck.